So I'm currently in an area that we call Catching Slough in Western Oregon. And Catching Slough is kind of a site that I have a bit of a love-hate relationship, kind of more anguish than hate, I guess. But it's a site that I've previously dealt with a lot for marble murrelet surveys. And it's very, very steep, and there's lots of areas that are incredibly thick and overgrown and super thorny and stuff like that. But there's one site in particular that I'm calling for surveying for spotted owls in, and it's a far enough hike in a kind of deep enough area that I'm leaving pretty early in the afternoon. Normally we will kind of call the owls around sunset, but to give myself enough time to navigate this area and explore it properly and get to the stations I want to get to, kind of leaving early. It's about 2:40 right now, and so I figured, it's daytime and there's some wildlife biology afoot, so might as well get started and kind of record the process at the same time the way I have been. So let's go start a wildlife biology field vlog for the day. Man, check this out. See, this is the kind of thing I just ridiculously love in Oregon. So you have this tree, each of those orange little dots there are just mushrooms growing on this tree. And look at all that moss and like those twists and turns. This is just what I love. Like, oh God, you can even see little droplets of rainwater on the mushroom. It's just amazing. Like, it's just, there's a level of growth and life in the, temperate northwest of the United States. And it's the kind of thing, when you think of rainforests, you often think of those kind of really hot, humid tropical areas. And this is just a completely different universe that is, in its own ways, every bit as lush and green and just full of life. Okay, so you got one last little stretch of about between going forward and then curving, maybe about like 650 meters to get to the first culling station. But I am so glad for this trail. Like I said, having worked in this area before it was carved out a bit and made easier to walk through, Catching Slough will just kind of haunt my nightmares for a while. You know, it's an amazing place, but it's also just immensely overgrown. It just kind of reminds me of just like nature gone feral. You know, you can look at like all this kind of thick brush and imagine stuff like this, but in the worst areas, equally dense but full of thorns and stuff that can just cut up your arms. And you know, I've been in places where, you know, I lose all sense of where I am in space. I lose concepts of uphill and downhill and knowing which way is east and which way is north, and all of these things just like become muddled together because you're just so surrounded by this thick vegetation. And at that place, my GPS really wasn't of any use either, because just as lost as I would watch the arrow move on either side of this drainage like 50 meters in either direction. So it was disconcerting, and I've since had a great deal of respect for Catching Slough. It's not a place you want to necessarily ever take lightly, and it's a place that really shows that when, you know, human disturbance creates these opportunities for some of these more fast-growing, you know, high light using plants, things like salmonberry and blackberry and these bushes, it just all of a sudden grows and grows and grows and grows until you're left with just this thick, incredibly intense collection of plants that just makes it feel like very, very frantic nature at a very different pace and kind of experience than you find in old growth forests. So obviously I much prefer moving through old growth because it's quite easy, much in the sense that places like Catching Slough, through all this, much less so. So I'm grateful for this path. It definitely makes life easier. Emphasis on easier, and still not necessarily easy. But it's always a satisfying place to get finished with. Just feels good to work your way through it and then know that you succeeded in calling what needed to be called and doing these wildlife surveys. Well, I'm off of that giant hill, back on the road, and I'm gonna head my way back to the truck, grab some dinner, then start calling some night points. That was pretty fun. I enjoyed filming those adventures out there, and hope you enjoyed some of the scenery and just got to experience a little bit of what I get to work in as a wildlife biologist. So I think that's gonna be it for me. Enjoyed myself today and hope you guys do as well. Till next time.